Welcome to Thrones and Scones. It's your weekday morning podcast where we have decided to sit here and chat Game of Thrones over breakfast. Yeah? Today we're tackling Season 3, Episode 9, a pretty forgettable Game of Thrones episode, The Reins of Castamere, and Cinnamon scones. My gosh, guys, it's been a couple now. We just walked into another boring episode.
So boring.
I feel like I have so many notes on this, but did anything even happen? Do we just sit around and twiddle our thumbs?
Wasn't a lot. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about a wedding later, but I mean, we can briefly go over that if you want.
Let's wiki it so that we can know exactly what we're dealing with.
Wiki it as Cookie Monster.
All right. You told me this a couple days ago, and then we were supposed to do it yesterday, and I guess I didn't. In all that time, guess what I haven't done? And that's tried even once to speak like Cookie Monster.
Okay, so it's either going to be Cookie Monster or Elmo.
No, Cookie Monster.
I'll try Cookie Monster. We'll see how it goes. I don't even know what he sounds like. I feel like it's rough and gruff and... C is for cookie. Is that right? I don't know. We're going to go with it.
Sure, go with it.
Rob presents himself to... No, God damn it.
Tony, channel your inner dumpster.
That's Oscar the Grouch.
Oh, is it? I don't watch Sesame Street.
Jesus.
Don't channel your inner dumpster, then.
Rob be presenting himself. That's Arnold again.
Here, pull it up, listen to it quick. Let's listen.
Listen to the Cookie Monster.
Yeah, while you do that, we'll talk about...
I kind of want to hear what Cookie Monster sounds like now.
Yeah, let's find it.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever in my life actually watched a single episode of Sesame Street.
Is Sesame Street still on?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. That's an ad. Pay no attention to this ad. For Squarespace.
Now, what starts with the letter C? Cookie starts with C.
Let's
think of other things that starts with C.
It really wasn't bad.
Who cares about the other things? C
is for cook. We're going to get a copyright strike. All right.
You kind of just have to kind of do like Kevin from The Office and just like a mix of him.
You're so right. And just like a smoker.
Yeah.
Kevin, if he was a chain smoker.
Rob presents himself to Walder Frey, and Edmure meets his bride. John faces his harshest test yet.
Still a little Arnie.
That's absolutely just Arnie.
Dario and Jorah debate how to take Yunkai. How Frey joins with House Tully.
I just gave up.
I feel like after you listen to it, it got even more Arnold.
More Arnold.
We could go back to the video evidence. I think there's a healthy bit of Arnie in there. You know?
Arnie, good old Arnie Schwartz.
I don't know who showed up first, but one of them took deep inspiration from the other. Oh, to anybody who is crazy enough to listen to our show without actually watching the show, Game of Thrones, they're using us to catch up ahead of the new season. That's a ballsy move. But I guess we'll just go ahead and set it straight. A lot happens in this episode. And hey, if one of our chief complaints up at this point is there's a lot to keep track of, all of a sudden there's a little bit less.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to point out that if you are listening to only our show to try and get ready for the new season, good luck. Because you're going to get very lost.
Hell yeah.
And also, in case you're not watching, or in case you want to watch, no nudity in this episode.
That's true. None at all.
Yeah, I think we can all agree nothing happens in this episode.
Yeah.
If you were to just listen to our show, and then you go in and you're like, God, did they change? Did they change, tactics this season? Because I was expecting the show to be a lot more penis-based.
I feel like we should have like a penis counter, like on our podcast, like dinging in the background.
Dong,
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 dong.
Exactly. Well, let's start from the beginning because things are kind of crazy at the end. We open up out at the twins. We don't understand what it means, but we'll get to it later. Rob and crew are eating bread and salt. It's a weird communion. And what this is, I don't even know if it's ever truly explained. It's the guest rite. If you eat bread and salt, you're fed bread and salt by a lord. It is him welcoming you and saying that,
hospitality.
Despite anything else, you have my hospitality here. Mm-hmm. And it goes back centuries. Like this is, Bran even talks about it later on, saying like the Rat King guy in the Night Fort was cursed because he broke that guest rite tradition. So this is it's a big deal here, and it will get to a little bit of a big deal later in the show. Obviously, I think I know what a lot of our conversation is going to center on. What was some of your guys' other notes from the episode? Favorite, least favorite moments?
So I'll just hit some parts where I thought was... So in Yunkai, mm-hmm. That whole part where now Grey Worm is... Because they're discussing kind of the strategic of how to take this area, right? How are they going to free this city? Because, that's what Daenerys is really more about. Not conquering, which I think is part of her character. She sees herself as not a conqueror, but as a freer, right? Like, that's kind of her thing. So when she's listening to her, like, to Jorah and the rest of her I can't think of his name now. Barristan. She's always trying
Barristan, as past Jeremy has.
But I'm not trying to get buzz in the first 20 seconds. I know it's coming. I think she's always, and I noticed that actually now watching that now more that you actually see her follow that pretty well in this episode. That she wants the good, if you will. So when it comes to her, like, hey, we don't have to do anything. We can essentially kind of use them to free themselves. I think and then set up the whole with Dario, right? Isn't that what's going on because isn't he the one that has the idea of taking a small group and infiltrating the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's going to sneak in the back gate and take out the guards real quietly and then open up the city from within. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's decided. Jorah, Dario, Grey Worm, they head on in and have a pretty baller fight scene.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a good part of the show.
You get to see them, like, not only... They've all got their own individual fighting styles going on. I think it's the first real, like, besides them just stabbing dudes walking by. Like, this is the first fighting we get to see from any Unsullied. Grey Worm holding his own. And then that one move where, like, Jorah blocks this guy, cuts him in the back and kicks him, and then Dario, like, cuts his guts out. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, it was pretty badass. I like that scene a lot. One of my favorites, if not my favorite. But I also really like the scene, and I'm kind of changing gears here, but I do want to just pop this in before I forget, because I did think it was very funny, super small part.
You have my consent to pop it in.
Hate Walder Frey, but I do like the scene where he's like naming his daughters, and he's basically, I can't remember the exact names, but he's basically like, Wanda, and then she shakes her head no, and he's like, Walda, shakes her head no, he's like, Waldina, and then he just kind of gives up, and then she's like, Mary, and it wasn't even close. It reminded me of, like, did you guys ever watch like Dexter's Laboratory?
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought like that. It's like the grandpa is like Dodo, and she's like Dee Dee, Dido, Dee Dee, Dottie, Dee Dee. Thanks, Billy.
Walder Frey is he's got some interesting moments in this show. He's got some weird glances. He knows he's being apologized to at this point at the beginning of the episode, so he can go and say things like, "Looks like you broke your vow for perky tits in a tight fit."
Yeah. In my notes, I just have Walder Frey, huge creep to Talisa. Yeah.
Talisi. Also, did he adopt Roslyn? Because no offense to his other kids, they look fine, but Roslyn is a great beauty, and we haven't seen her at this point. Like, this is an actual question. Is this a trick? Is she not a Frey child, or has he been hiding her away for some nefarious plot to be like, you'd be like, haha, look, I got a hot daughter.
I don't know.
Because doesn't he say that in the last episode where he's like free, or 2 episodes where he's worried about marrying. He's like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, God knows what I'm walking into. Have you seen the phrase? And so,
Well, yeah, even when Catelyn pledges Rob's hand, she says, you can have his choice of his daughters, and he says, well, what did you think of his daughters? And he said, I saw two that were not unpleasant, or something like that. Like, so she obviously didn't see Rosalind. What's up with this?
Yeah.
When I first watched the show, I thought it was a trick. Like, I thought it was, given what happens at the wedding, I thought he was just got some random chick. But then why would she go along with it, I guess?
Yeah.
And
just speaking ahead, she is afraid.
yeah, because Edmure is his son-in-law or whatever,
Yeah.
basically, and that plays out later. So, yeah, it's weird.
We get a couple. I will say, I want to get my least favorite moment out of the way, if all are well with it. It's a trivial thing, but last episode we pretty much end with Sam, the coward of all cowards, going toe to toe, or toe to back of the shoulder, with a White Walker and slaying it with a lucky obsidian dagger. And then we open on Sam and Gilly, and they're just talking about like fires or something, or the night gate. And I don't even care if it's been 4 days, which timelines are sketchy. I don't know how long it's been.
Exactly.
How are you talking about anything but that? Anything but the fact that you just killed something that hasn't been seen or killed in thousands of years.
So I don't remember. Does John mention that he saw when they were bringing the boy out? Does he mention that to Sam as well? Of saying that he saw the creature? I remember.
I mean, it doesn't show him mentioning it to Sam, but he definitely says it to Craster.
Yeah. And that's the only thing I could think of like, he doesn't seem all that surprised, It's just like, kind of like they're just wandering now, heading back to the wall. So, yeah,
I'm gonna say that no, because Sam, Graham, and Pip do have that conversation after John leaves, where it's like, oh, 1 blast is for, Rangers return, and 2 blasts for wildlings. And then Sam chimes in, he's like, oh, 3 blasts for White Walkers. And they look at him and he's like, not that anyone's used it, but it's true.
It's true, yeah.
So I don't think he knows or would have had that conversation.
Because then the question is Gilly aware of these things, right? It's never really said specifically in the show, do the wives know what Craster's doing with the sons?
I think so, because she seems to know right away in the last episode, like,
yes,
it's coming for the baby. Yep. Like, she knows.
Yep.
Yep, good point. My least favorite part of the episode is right around there. Same thing. And I'm going to hit on it again, because I've said it before. That little baby needs a hat.
Thank you. Yes, it does. It does very much. This baby is going to get frostbite to hell on its face. It's going to lose half of its little baby face, and then Gilly's going to feel pretty bad about that. Maybe they're of hardier stock. I don't know.
Maybe.
Do you feel the whole Bran Stark story is starting to become a little more interesting now that we've got to the wall?
Yeah. Bran, we get to see him warg in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So,
ooh, it's baller.
It is pretty much a badass, so that was something I enjoyed. So that was my favorite part.
He wargs into Hodor. I love the little conversation afterwards where it's like, people can warg into all kind of things, but you got into Hodor. And he's like, people can't do that north of the wall. And Jonah's just like, no one can do that. Like, why do you think we're here? Like, you're special, you dipshit. I love that. And then my one problem with that scene is, again, love the whole thing. Love Jon, kind of drawing that line where his honor lies, running away from the wildlings.
Yep.
But does he just not acknowledge it? Or does he really not recognize the fact that he was just saved by 2 direwolves that he would be relatively familiar with? Like, I know they're bigger, but they're direwolves south of the wall. You don't have that many options. Like, does it strike him as odd? Because I don't think it's ever brought up.
Yeah, I don't think it's brought up again at all. How he got away in that sense. I was thinking, I don't remember anything particular from a statement he makes after that in the next couple episodes onto how he got free. But obviously other things happen to him soon in the next episode as well. So
yeah, what did you what'd you guys think of Jon's turning point there?
Expected.
Yeah, I mean, I I think it was a good line to be drawn, right? I mean, he couldn't kill that guy, so
Right.
I mean, when he's talking the entire time, I think it was in the last episode, maybe the one before, explaining to Egret about, look, this is a failed mission. This is never going to work. The prior attempts don't work. And she's pointing, you're one of us, so we all die together and all that stuff. Like
All of us.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to agree with that statement. Just kind of turns and walks away, and which is why I think we talked about it prior of like, is there truly love? Does he love her? We know that answer in the next couple episodes. We see more of that development, but I don't know. I think he's confused. I don't think he knows, because he's fighting with his own honor, right? I mean, he sees himself as the spy, but also he broke an oath. Killed a fellow Knight of the Watch, which he argues later that, he didn't murder him. He simply allowed his death to have meaning, which I think was a really good part of the show in the future. So I don't know. John's character now for me is just now getting good. Like, it's been really slow with him. Even the whole Egret thing with the wildlings, I don't know. It's slow for me there. But now I'm actually interested in see what he's going to do.
It's at this point where, like, and maybe it's just because I lost one of my, one of my chief boys, but now I'm rooting for John.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. You're definitely rooting for John now. You've seen him go through enough shit, and you're interested to see what is he going to do.
It is one of the more overshadowed moments because obviously emotions get even higher. But it's a pretty sad moment in that tower. Bran and Rickon parting ways. Will they see each other again? Who's to say? But it's it's a little bit of a bummer there. I'm your brother. I have to protect you. And Bran's just like, these are like the first 6 lines you've gotten in the whole series. What are you gonna do to protect me, you little shit? Like. Yeah, I thought it was cute. I liked that moment a lot.
Yeah, and Osha is good, right? I mean, like, Osha's been a good character. It was hard because you want them all in that same dynamic, so that was kind of hard to see them split up.
I was kind of hoping Rickon would just kind of like just fade away into the darkness again, like he did down in the catacombs or crypt or whatever. Just kind of fade into the darkness like a little creep.
And he was just all of a sudden, he was never even there.
He was never.
Yeah.
To
Go ahead,
just
Hans.
jump back with Gilly and Sam before we move on to bigger components of the episode. What did you think of the what little line that Gilly says when she's asking Sam about how he can remember all this stuff in the book, and then she goes, "You're like a wizard." And you get this.
He gets so happy.
Big old grin from Sam. Thought that was pretty funny.
I love that. Yeah, I like that a lot. He is unusually smitten, which I still think is forced to an extent, but
It feels forced. Yeah,
it's cute. It's cute. It's whatever.
it definitely provides a little bit of humor in this show, a little lightheartedness that is suddenly drowned in sorrow.
It's true. It's true. Which, the wedding, Edmure Tully gets married to Rosalind Frey. No one sees her until the wedding, and voila, she's beautiful. And Rob even kind of gives a look to Walder Frey, and he's like, look at what my penis can do. And and so anyway, the wedding goes off. It kind of looks like a fun wedding. There's fun little like Northern English music going on. I'm a big fan of that folky like drum string beat thing. Looks like good food. Catelyn's having fun. Bruce Bolton almost smiles. It's a good occasion.
Yeah, and then what happened? I dozed off. What happened next?
Yeah. So they get a little bit sadder with the music.
A little bit sadder.
Someone shuts the door. Brendan Tully leaves in the nick of time, conveniently. And then, they shut the doors because, for acoustic purposes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then some violins start striking up the Reins of Castamere, which for the uninitiated is the song that was written about Tywin Lannister wiping out an entire rival house.
So here's my thing. I'm sorry to interrupt here, but was it really necessary to at the wedding, like to obviously have to have like practiced or like, do you think do you think they actually had like a
Sheet
practice
music.
run or like
Sheet music.
like a full orchestra, like organized for the whole night? Walder Frey's just up there like setting the tone for the whole evening. And was it really necessary to change the music for this wedding? I mean, I feel like that was a little over the top.
It was, Walder Frey is a party planner through and through. Can't you tell by his demeanor? And this needed to be flawless. I made the mental note. I was like, what if like Rob was like really happy with the band's performances and he walked up the stairs to like thank them and, maybe get a request in, and he just walks up and sees like 40 crossbows. He's like, oh,
what's that for? That's party favors.
Party favor.
Party
Yeah, we don't
favors.
have the confetti shooters. So this is the
Joffrey
next
loves
best thing.
crossbows. It's everyone's gift tonight.
Like even because the music starts, the changes a little early, and you start to get Catelyn kind of looking around like, what?
Yeah.
But I mean, don't you think someone would have kind of like heard that music? Like it was that real upbeat, fun music. Then they go to this just like real, drowning, dark music. Don't you think someone would have been like, man, this party really died? Like,
You guys are downers. So
No one really reacts except Catelyn, who's realizing everything in slow motion, and then like looks at Roose Bolton, who motions basically to like, hey, check out my sleeve. And she does, and he's wearing armor. He went and changed, and she slaps him across the face. And then, obviously, he knows what's about to happen, and he gets out of there. But what it looks like is she slaps him across the face, and he just runs off screen. Like, he's so ashamed that he must run away.
So in the book, Catelyn's perspective is this, and you get a lot from her emotions, and I just remember the whole part where she's talking to Ned in like a prayer of like the kind of the grief and everything, the loss of her sons.
Yeah.
Do you think that is an emotional thing?
Sure.
What do you think is the most emotional part of this? Because for me, Talisa getting stabbed.
Yes, and
That
that's the
is-
big, because book readers don't expect that. Again, Talisa's not a character,
Yeah.
and Rob's wife in the books isn't at the
Isn't
wedding.
there. Yes,
So this is a very different thing. Stabbed in the baby, by the way.
God, multiple times.
that was rough.
Oh,
Right in the baby, which is a little right after they decided to name it Aunt Ned too,
Yeah.
which is really, really. So I think that's that was put in specifically to be like, okay, everyone is gonna be emotionally invested in this moment, whether they know what's coming or not. And it sets off that tone of just craziness. I still think that Catelyn has the most, like, we see her up in arms, giving up everything she's fought for. Walder, let it go. We'll forget, we'll forgive, we'll never, blah, blah, blah. Just let my son walk away. Kill me, doesn't matter. She kills Walder Frey's wife.
where
And
she kills a grandson, I think, in the book, right? Or
I don't remember. Could
she
be.
does. She doesn't kill a wife, I believe. I remember her killing either a grandson or a nephew. It's a boy. I'm almost positive.
Okay.
Which is another thing again that makes this more powerful, right? Killing a wife, even though his reaction to it is kind of like, I'll get another, no big deal.
It's like his 9th wife already, so it's probably good
and I
to
think
figure
she
it
even
out.
realizes that when she has her, of like, fuck, like there's literally nothing. This is the end, and the end scene of, with her throat slit and just the absolute giving up, right? Like you see like this sigh. It is unbelievably depressing.
It's the one thing where, knowing what happens and even having seen this again, you're like, I don't really need to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because it's so intense. And I watched an interview with Richard Madden, Robb Stark, who was talking about the fact that he hadn't seen the scene since the episode premiered, and he didn't want to watch it. But there were all these people, Michelle Fairley, and I don't know Talisa's actress's name.
It's Talisi.
Talisi, sorry. How they just, everyone is so emotionally invested in the scene, and there's such good performances that you need to, you feel such respect for that you have to kind of sit yourself through it, despite the fact that it hurts. And it really is a very emotional. I remember the first time this episode aired. Again, I knew what was happening. I'd read the books. My dad called me at 2 a.m. after he had watched the episode, like woke me up so that he could just yell at me for getting him into this show. Because it was such an emotional moment for him.
My aunt is really into this more than Bob is, but Bob was watching it, and I remember when they saw this, and she was like, "I almost stopped watching the show." She loved Rob. Rob was her hero, and I mean, everyone remembers the scene with Ned and Arya and the doves, or you're just kind of like, that's such a powerful thing. To me, Talisa getting stabbed just wrecks you. You're like, what the fuck? Like, no, you're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to die. How fucking dare you make this show kill her?
It's dark. Yeah, it's super crazy. Speaking of like having read the scene, this season is where I started reading the books, like before the season came out. So I had read this before I saw it. I knew it was happening. But the Red Wedding is not a phrase that I was familiar with reading the books. Like, no one was talking about it until it happened in the show in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So it's not something that I knew of. And I was working at Disney at the time. And because of the bus system there, I'd have to get to work quite early just to make sure that I'd be on time in case something went wrong. So I'd spend like an hour reading in the break room before my shift would start. And about 5 minutes before my shift started, I read this chapter.
Oh my God.
And then began my 13-hour shift where I had to smile nonstop at Walt Disney. And I'm just like having this crisis inside me.
Yeah.
It was so like I felt almost physically ill. I was like thinking I was going to open the next chapter and it was going to be like, and Rob awoke from a dream. It was the 21st century. And, like that it was going to be some sort of crazy.
And he had discovered iTunes.
Exactly. But no.
And the dire wolf,
really
the death. I mean, pets dying always suck, right? Like, come on. Like, the whole head laying, oh my God. Like, just.
And Arya gets so close it hurts.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's when I actually think the Hound, and I talked about this a little bit last episode, start to see him, like, you see he's like, he gets how fucked up it is. He gets that that it's going to be bad. Knocks her out because he realizes if he doesn't, things are just going to get worse.
He's got to get her out there. Yeah,
so I don't know. This was much more, I mean, obviously multiple deaths, multiple main characters, which... we've talked about, we see Rob marching toward this moment with some really bad decisions. Any glowing, besides the obvious marrying to Lisa, anything else that you think was just that led to this? Because there's conversation that we're going to talk about in the future that it's not just the betrayal with the marrying of Talisa that leads to this moment. But do you think there's anything else that you can think of in the prior episodes that led to it?
I think it probably would have tried to happen one way or the other, but I think what led to them being at the ultimate mercy of this guy was initially the Ironborn invasion.
Yep.
Had Rob not sent Theon away, or had Theon made a smidge better choices in his life. Mm-hmm. And then the Karstark thing as well, which again, I stand by the fact that I like the decision that Rob made. I think it was 100% in with his character.
Yep.
But had he not done it, this, I think, could have been postponed to the level where it might not have even happened.
Yeah, and it's funny because they talk about him of like, what a great kind of battle mind. He's winning all these battles. Like, that's the thing is like, they talk about, he's making stupid decisions, but every decision he makes, he wins. And every time you do something and he points out, look, that's dumb. You lost more men. We don't have the men to lose. Like, I am doing the things that are smart. We can't win the war that they want to fight. We win the war that we want to fight. And there was like, he thinks himself too high and all that stuff. And I'm like, really? Because the entire time I'm thinking, you guys are fucking stupid. You're making all these like jump to conclusion battle of tactics. And Rob's always showing like that very kind of tactician mind. So I struggled with that as well because Rob's death was more powerful to me than Ned. Obviously, we've known Rob longer in the show as well, but Rob doesn't make those same mistakes that his dad did. I don't think Rob's honor leads to his death where Ned's did.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
The one non-honorable thing that Rob kind of does leads to his
which do you
death.
and I think that's actually probably what I would argue the book is kind of showing as well. You know, of like it wants to point out that there is no honor, right? There is no honor in the Game of Thrones, and I think that literally could have been the name of the episode.
Hans, were you watching, like when you first watched this episode, were you live with the show or had it already happened?
It had already happened.
So did you know it was coming?
I had known that I had heard the phrase Red Wedding.
Okay.
I had no idea that Robb Stark died or any of the specific characters died. I just knew that there was a moment in the show that a lot of people bitched about, and I had no idea what it was. So to answer your question, no, I was completely surprised. And I was pissed. I thought Rob was my boy.
Oh, they're just taking everybody away from us. And I will say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just think it was so crazy that I thought, and I think, Tony, you said pretty much the same thing. I was so surprised that even watching it the second time got me. Like, you know what I mean? I knew it was coming and it still bothered me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the 5th time right now and it hurts, Daddy.
Oh, God.
And I know we have touched on it a little bit before. We'll go ahead and spoil the books as we have time and time again. Catelyn Stark comes back in the books as a different character called Lady Stoneheart. She's brought back by Beric Dondarrion. The effort kills him, and she goes on to lead the Brotherhood, and they basically just go on a quest to murder Frey's. It does fold back into some key character points that we could get into later on when those things are going to kind of be happening. But it's a choice they decided not to go with in the show. I think it's one of the first major character exclusions, the big divergences that we're starting to get where the show's making their own choices and saying, okay, we're doing our own thing, telling our own story. And I know some people don't like that. I really respect that because it's like, I want to enjoy the books when they come out, if that's in next year or in 10 years, for what they are and for the story that they're going to tell, not just reading the script of something that already happened.
Yeah, I think it was a smart move because I don't know anything about that storyline, but I think they wanted to save the coming back to life thing to be more of a surprise, right? Not that that's just something that just can happen. I think they would have.
Up until you said that never even like made an impact on me until you made that point.
Yeah, they would have.
But I mean, we've already seen it.
They would have like set the. I think it was more subtle that way, though. Like I don't know.
We've seen it in I would say non-main characters, right? Like
sure.
And so I think that's been less I mean, it's less powerful. You bring back a Stark or a Lannister, and suddenly it's like, holy shit, game changed.
Yeah, but I kind of think on the converse end of that, not that we in the books we never see it happen, we only hear that it did happen. See in quotes. But I kind of think that it goes against that point a little bit too, where it's like, oh yeah, this can happen, but not only, all the resurrections that we see in the show thus far and going forward. It's just kind of like, okay, it happens. The God has willed it, and so it shall be. But in this instance, the effort kills somebody. Yeah, and I kind of like that counterbalance.
I do too.
It's a good point.
Yep. And again, I mean, we already know my opinion on Catelyn. She was meant to set
she was
on
meant
that
to
Iron
rule.
Throne to rule until the end of days.
That's going to be how the books end. Zombie Catelyn up on the throne.
You know it.
Jeremy, I have some bad news for you. We have ripped, rest in peace-ed, Rob, Catelyn, Talisa, Ned 2.0, and Grey Wind, and probably most of this Stark, not fleet, but armada. No, that's not the right word either. Forces at this point. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but I also have worse news for you. I hope your cinnamon scone was good, but we don't have time to ask you how it was. We got to wrap things up. You can catch us, thronesandscones.com, to find the links to everything. We'll be back tomorrow to round out this season.
Every single one of you.
You down with GOT?
Yeah, you know me.
No, fuck you.
our podcast is slowly just transitioning into each one of us evaluating, like spending a good half an episode evaluating one of our scrotums.
Yeah.
Wait, plural for scrotum? Scroti?
Scrotices. My brother texted me the other day saying like, "Oh, I just listened to your season 2 recap," and he had like a bunch of the crying emojis because that's how the youth talk now.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, thanks." You know, we were kind of hoping that that episode would be a little bit better, but I'm glad you liked it. He's like, "I didn't even get past the first 15 minutes. I'm just laughing my ass off at all the balls."
Yeah, I think we found our audience. Just those youths that really think testicles are funny.
You know, with the response to that, maybe I should just do more drugs at this point.
Yeah. What other elective surgeries can you have for the podcast?
Jesus Christ. I just need to drink more while we're doing this. I feel like that's the thing with the breakfast podcast. You're like, oh, I'm throwing the scones with alcohol now.
Yes. Like a breakfast beer, you know? We just got to pretend like we're European.
I could totally do that. That'd be delicious.
Well, I think we already talked about some possible elective surgeries that Jeremy could have. Probably penis reduction.
Yes,
Testicle enlargement. Well, it sounds like, Tony, these could also apply to you nowadays.
Hell yeah.
Well, it is the cross I bear with a horse cock.
Yeah, and to the contrary, I have a very small penis. So no worries over here.
Our show average is still right in the good.
Yeah, probably still running a little small for the average.